Hi, my name is Dhruv Tripathi. So today we're gonna start our new fresh topic, that is the scenario planning. So far we have already discussed about the trend canvas, how to build your trend canvas, the four dimensions of trend canvas and the structure drivers under those four dimensions. We have also built our trend index. Now it's time to start working on your scenario planning. So what is scenario planning, why it's required, and the overall process of building scenarios will be discussed in this topic. So let's start with our topic, what is a scenario? So the primary purpose of a scenario is to contextualize the future by considering the socio-economic and cultural trends with respect to the human scale and attempting to detect otherwise hard to spot consumers' behavior and pattern. So here, as we have already discussed in our four dimensions 4D methodology of trend forecast, we have our scientific, social, emotional, and spiritual dimension. So by contextualizing those four dimensions, we try to identify hard to spot consumer behaviors and pattern based on a particular time frame. For example, you might be considering the time frame of 10 years, 15 years for your organization. It's all depend upon how long you want to see the trends that might be impacting your organization and its future implication, the future events that may impact your business, your organization's business, your organization's strategic planning. So ideally, you start with a vision how people as a citizen and consumers are likely to be influenced by political, economic, social, and cultural factors, as well as considering the technological impacts on our society, the city, the transportation, building, and infrastructure. So, based on those key important aspect of the economy, how the politics gonna shape after a particular time, what will be the impact on the culture, as well as considering the impact of the technology on a particular time frame. So you want to try to understand the trend that we have observed in our trend canvas, that's impact after 5 year, 10 years, how it's gonna work around, how the technology gonna impact those identified trend and their implication for your business should be identified based on the particular aspect of culture, social behavior, that infrastructure, the technology, and all the aspect of the trend. So what developed from this is a scenario. So scenario will be developed, and this scenario should be formed in a collage, visual collage, or a written synopsis of series of influence, series of events. You could also work on your influence diagram. You could also create your influence indexes, whatever you want to do to identify the future events in a mostly easy to understand format. So visual collage is a like your mood board. You build it to understand the things very easily, to communicate within your team in a very faster way. For example, the written words take a lot of time to understand the thing, but through the collage, visual, through the visual interpretation of the future events will will help your employee, your colleague to understand the things in a faster way. Or you could build a story like format rather than putting a lot of analysis, the data and all the thing to make it very complicated. Try to make it very simple and precise. So your scenario planning acts as a storytelling framework for exploring the bigger picture, and it's also like a mood board of a selected macro trends and then examining more nuanced details with the supporting micro trends. So scenario planning attempts to capture the richness and range of possibilities, stimulating decision makers to consider change they would otherwise ignore. At the same time, it organizes those possibilities into narratives that are easier to grasp and use than the great volume of the data. So scenario planning, as we are scenario planning, as we are keep on discussing, it is just the simplified version of the data that we have grasped into a storytelling and the collage format. So scenarios are developed to map out how data and insight might evolve in a particular context, in a particular timeline, in a particular time frame, and also can be expanded into a fully developed concept or strategy for your organization. As a possible profile of the future, they can be helpful in pitching ideas and concepts or in interesting and comparing a variety of possible outcomes to improve creative thinking and developing projections for the most likely or lucrative outcome. So when working with several scenarios at once, all should have the same time frame or similar likelihood in order to decrease any biases or some internal inconsistencies to make them fully truly comparable. For example, if you are taking a different time frame, maybe for one scenario, one data that you are trying to understand for a 5 year time frame, and then you're trying to project for a 10-year time frame, it's not going to work actually. So in that case, you need to have the consistency in your time frame and try to understand the situation in a similar likelihood. So your event should have the same time frame. You should not have the any difference time frame or the possible likelihood. So developing scenarios in future storytelling format means that they are narrated and imaginative and memorable. The reason is that this approach has logical framework underpinned with data and evidence that gives the audience a better sense of how change could impact on people's life in future. So there is no perfect way of writing scenario, but the most robust starting point is to build them around the personage, around the consumers, around the people, around their personality, that we call a core typology, and this will make them feel more real. So make them under 4P philosophy. Build your scenarios on 4P philosophy, in which develop the strategy that consider people, planet, and purpose alongside with the performance. So measure your scenarios if those scenarios are influencing the people or not. Try to look around if that scenario gonna impact the planet, how long it will be useful for our environment, will it impact our environment, and what will be the purpose of that scenario, along with will that scenario be profitable for your organization. So now let's look into why to use the scenario planning. So as we are keep on discussing, the scenario planning is a useful tool to understand the future events for a particular time frame with respect to your organizational requirement. So scenario planning builds the possible collage of scenarios in storytelling format, as we are keep on discussing. Here it is vital to understand that scenarios explore the uncertainties of a particular time of a particular organization. So to understand why to use the scenario, the first thing that you need to understand, who is going to use the scenario and what will be the purpose they are developing the scenarios, and exactly how the outcome will be used by them and when. So this is the most important question that we need to first try to solve to understand why use the scenario planning. But let's look into some of the few generic use of scenario planning. The first one is the enabling creativity. For a fashion industry, if you want to understand the future of a particular trend, you can utilize the scenario planning. So suppose that in how the consumers are reacting, how their lives are changing based on the identified trend, we need to build the possible events of the scenario so we can build the trends around the consumer, around their personas based on the 4P core value system. Then scenario planning is used for the learning purpose, how the possible events will take place after a particular time frame. So for your organization, you want to understand the possibility of the product, how the products will evolve over the time, how the consumer's behavior will change for the product. So for that reason, you need to build your scenarios. Then framing debate for a possible scenario, for a possible events, and then reframing the identities, how the consumer's life, how their personality gonna change. And then we need to use the scenario planning to understand building new social capital. Then we use scenario planning in generating strategic intelligence, identifying key risk. So for your organization, using the scenario planning, you can identify the possible risk that may be ignored, that you may have ignored, that you may have not understood without understanding the possible events that will be shaping for the particular time frame of your organizational structure, maybe the product that your organization is manufacturing. So the scenarios could help you in that way. Then scenarios could be used for monitoring and early warning. So the scenarios could be used to understand the early sign of warning, why you need to be ready with the coming challenges based on the current situation, how the current scenario, how the current situation will be shaping up the future events for your organization. And you could also try to understand, try to anticipate, if you would have not taken any action, what will be the impact on your organization. Then developing and testing strategic option. So you have built your strategic option, strategic decision. You could also try to understand the scenario mapping of your strategic options, then formulating strategic plan for your organization and also making the decision. So in short, scenario could be used in multiple situations. The first one is uncertainty is high relative to your ability to predict or adjust. Then too many costly affairs, surprises have occurred in the past. Then the company does not perceive or generate new opportunity. The company is unable to understand the new creative opportunity that may be required to sustain your company. Then you can use the scenario planning to understand the quality of strategic thinking. It's low or high, it's too routinized, rigid, or bureaucratic. Then the industry has experienced significant challenges or change is about to happen. So in case of you are trying to understand what change that may occur after a particular time frame, so you should be ready with the particular events that may happen based on your scenario planning. Then the most important use of the scenario planning is the company wants a common language and framework without shifting diversity. Then there are strong difference of opinion and multiple opinions have merits. So all the opinions should be filtered out based on the scenario planning for your organization that you may gonna build, to understand if those multiple opinions that are coming through based on your internal understanding of the possibilities, you could frame out based on your filtering of the events that may occur.